had already influenced unemployed and starved people, Muhammad Mossadegh, Ayatollah rose up against the White Revolution, and from here the regime of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini began. Khomeini introduced the Sharia law, Vilayat-e-Faqih. The only nation to possess nuclear weapons is Israel. See, these Gulf countries controls the major oil supply, but they are not nuclear weapon states. See, the main ingredient to make a nuclear weapon is uranium. Why does Israel hate Iran? Ali Khamenei have always supported Palestine and group opposing the Iran. $1 equals to about 1.3 million Iranian riyals. When the protests become more intense, people become uncontrollable and security forces began firing. After that, the world's most crucial route, the Strait of Hormuz, was blocked by the Iran. Who is paying the price of this war? To know the present situation of Iran, we need to take a look into the history of Iran. As if today the US is acting against Iran, this condition was not always the same. Previously, the US and Iran were partners. The present condition of Iran shows instability, but Iran has often remained in an unconditional situation. In the 7th century, Muslim conquest to Persia leads to Islamization of Persia, which caused decline of the Parsi community. Previously, Parsis used to live in Persia. Due to peacefully increasing dominance of Islam religion in Persia, some of the Parsis migrated to India, Gujarat and Maharashtra. See, they have contributed lot for the development of India. Some of the prominent examples are Sir Ratan Tata, Sir Homi Bhabha. Islam was founded by Prophet Muhammad in the Arabian Peninsula. After his death, a confusion rose regarding the selection of new caliph or khalifa. First group wanted his friend Hazrat Abu Bakr to be a new caliph. On the other side, they wanted his son-in-law Hazrat Ali to be a new caliph. See, now they divided into two communities. Those who favored his friend Hazrat Abu Bakr, they are called Sunni Muslims, and those who favored his son-in-law Hazrat Ali, they are called Shia Muslims. The green area shows Sunni Muslim dominated regions, which includes India and Arab countries. And the orange one shows Shia Muslim dominated regions, which includes Iraq, Iran and Yemen. So in the entire world, Shia Muslims hold about 90% of the total Muslim population and Sunni Muslims hold just 10%. But it is very important to note here that as the region diverse, much cultural diversity is also observed among these communities. In the 1800s, there was the rule of the Khazar dynasty in Iran. Iran was bounded by British Empire, as previously India was under the control of Britishers, and by Russian Empire. See, Russia was very powerful empire at that time, and after achieving success in many regions, they invaded towards Iran. In 1813, a peace treaty, the Treaty of Gulistan, was signed between Iran and Russia. At that time, Iran was ruled by Fath Ali Shah Khazar. The British Empire was also a very strong empire directly headed towards Iran. Now, North Iran had Russian influence and Southeast Iran had British influence. See, for a while after the death of King of Russia, it felt it had great chance to attack Russia. On one hand, they lost the war. On the other, a new treaty, the Treaty of Turkmenistan, was signed with Iran. 20 million silver rubles as compensation and full rights to navigate the Caspian Sea and its coast were given to Russia with many other concessions. They started exploiting Iran's trade as Britishers had done with India. Small traders and poor people were ignored. Inflation rates and unemployment were at peak levels. People's confidence in their king diminished. In Iran, top religious scholars are known as ulemas and supreme scholars are known as ayatollahs. In Iran, there is a slight influence of religious leaders in policy and governance. See, why I am sharing this all, because at last this all things will amalgamate and will make sense. In 1901, Muzaffar Shah Khazar was the king of Iran. William Diarchi, who lived in London, was a miner and had strong idea to find oil in Iran. For that, he signed a concession with Muzaffar and he got rights to prospect for oil for 60 years. For that, he would pay 20,000 pounds and promise 16% of the future profits. He financed this idea and spent almost his profit he had gained from his mining business. Some of the reports were handed with Diarchi that Iran has plenty of oil and that's why he started this program to find oil in Iran. But DRK's fortune dwindled away and he was forced to sell almost his right to British Oil Company. In May 1908, they finally found oil. In 14th April 1909, this British Oil Company was later named as Anglo-Persian Oil Company and today it is known as British Petroleum. Forcing the British oil plant, Iranians were not satisfied with giving the country's resource into hands of others. They used to receive just 16% of the profit and monthly charge of 20,000 pounds. It is just like a drop into the ocean. As I mentioned earlier, and now ulemas can interfere in country's policy due to people's support. A majlis was convened for the first time in 1906. This means that monarchy on the one side and on the other side there was parliament of these ulemas and other religious leaders. Constitution and policies were influenced by Shia religious ethics and this time the king had almost none power. Now it was the time of First World War. Russians left Iran but Britishers did not. Why? Because of oil. Ahmad Shah Khazar was opposed by people which led to overthrow of Khazar dynasty. New ruler Raza Shah Pahlavi established his Pahlavi dynasty in Iran with full support of Britishers and partial support of ulemas and public. Raja Khan introduced socio-economic developments, secularism and public laws and orders. He attempted to modernize Iran with amenities like schools, buses and cinemas. But this modernization was criticized as superficial and on the other hand taxation and corruption were at highest peak this time. Removal of Purdah system proved a major decision. The hijab was banned in 1936 and at the same time many villagers and bazaris rose in rebellions against this Raja Shah and troops finally quelled the unrest. Coinciding with this, World War II was started and Germany felt very powerful country against Soviet Union. Iran felt Germany a very powerful country and allowed some presence, due to which Russia and British felt strategic disadvantage and were compelled to attack Iran. After World War II, the British army left Iran, but Russia did not immediately withdraw. As I mentioned earlier, rebellion arose in Iran that created further instability. Emergence of two short-lived national states, Azerbaijan and Republic of Kurdistan. After the death and declining influence of Raja Shah, the new young Shah was compelled to play a very hands-off role in the government due to increasing dominance of a new leader who had already influenced unemployed and starved people, Mohammad Mossadegh. See, while Britain's loss and suffering due to World War II and emerging power of America, America gets 50% rights of Iranian oil reserve. And therefore, in this situation, the main hero or villain enters into the stage. Mossadegh, with strong public support and weak role of Shah, became the Prime Minister of Iran. On one side there was the monarchy and on the other side there was the constitution, but this time Mossadegh held the real power. He nationalized the oil reserves of Iran, meaning Iran only had authority to extract and sell the oil. See, now America imposed sanctions on Iran. Iranian people were in starving conditions, but this time the America sends intelligence, orchestrated removal of Mossadegh, and the role of the Shah was re-established. The role and the path of US become clearer as this time the Shah was under their influence. Oil trade with Iran was restarted under the Western influence and this system was continued. US and Britain shared equally profits over the time and did not allow Iran to audit their accounts or to have representation in board of directors. In 1957, after years of suppression where opposition was silenced and arrested, Shah introduced new social, economical, agrarian and administration reform to modernize the country. This was known as the White Revolution in Iran. In this revolution, the Shah announced land reforms, nationalization of forests, encouragement of women's participation and allowed non-Muslims to take the office. However, these reforms did not greatly improve the economic conditions of Iran. This time, just like Mossadegh, Ayatollah rose up against the White Revolution, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. He viewed it as an attack on Islam. Khomeini rose up against both the Shah and his White Revolution. Khomeini delivered harsh speeches attacking the Shah and non-Muslim activities. Khomeini proved successful in delivering powerful speeches and influencing the people of Iran. He warned the people constantly to rise up against US and exposing the Shah. Due to his rising influence and with the support of American intelligence, on 9th November 1964 he was sent to Turkey and just 1 year later he was allowed to send to Iran Despite his exile, his powerful speeches remained intact. He continued delivering aggressive speeches from Iran and influenced Shia Muslim as always. Here he delivered aggressive speeches, and in Iran an uncontrolled movement rose up. His supporters used to circulate communist speech from Iraq to Iran and Shia Muslim regions. Saddam Hussein, who was then vice president of Iraq, felt threatened for his administration due to communists' increasing influence. Then he forced Khamenei to send to France. The situation becomes so unstable that whenever Khamenei delivers a speech, the movement starts in Iran, leading to death of hundreds and thousands of people. This situation became like a vicious, continuous cycle. The Shah was suffering from cancer, and with this intense agitation, in 1978 he fled to the US, and from here the regime of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini began. On 1st February 1979, Khomeini once again arrived in Iran. According to the voting results, 98% voted in favor of making Iran an Islamic Republic nation. Khomeini introduced Sharia law, according to which Iran will run on the basis of laws of God, and he introduced the concept Vilayat-e-Faqih. According to this system, the laws of the society should be based on laws of God. In this Islamic Sharia, Faqih refers to a religious jurist who holds authority, and governance should be based on Islamic Sharia. Monarchy and assemblies who holds majority support from the people was considered incorrect under this system. According to this system, it is most important to counter anti-Muslim conspiracies by foreign powers. Now, Iran would be run by a supreme leader under whom president would function and elections will be held. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was the supreme leader that time, and major decision and power rested with the ulemas. After his arrival and establishment of theocracy on 4th November 1979, the US embassy in Iran was seized. 52 officers were taken hostage, demanding the Shah's return to Iran, who was in US due to his cancer disease. Khomeini did not stop here. He aimed to establish Islamic State worldwide as a major goal of revolution. Most of the systems were allied according to Islamic religious policies. Many industries were nationalized, laws and education was Islamized, and Western influence was banned. Iranian economy was already weakened due to strained international relations and American sanctions. Now most of the countries, including Islamic countries, fear this theocratic system. At this point, Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein attacked Iran, forcing weakness of Iranian forces. Saddam Hussein was already opposed by Khomeini. He wanted to acquire influence over the Persian Gulf and claim territories which were under the control of Iran during the Shah's rule. On 22nd September 1980, Iraq invaded Iran, and now Iran-Iran war began. Revolutionary Iran was completely surprised by this attack. Initially, Iraqi army got several advantages, but by 1982, Iranian army pushed Iraqi army back into Iran. But this war continued for next 6 years until 1988. During this war, thousands of civilian and military personnel were killed, especially when Iraq used chemical weapons. More than 182,000 Kurds were victims during this 8 years war. The total casualties of Iran was estimated to be between 5 lakh to 10 lakh, and most of this death was caused by the chemical weapons which was used by Iraq. On 3rd June 1989, Ruhollah Khomeini died. After his death, a 25-man Constitutional Reform Council elected Ali Khamenei as the next Supreme Leader of Iran. Now, the Supreme Leader of Iran was Ali Khamenei. See, in the airstrikes of US and Israel, Ali Khamenei was assassinated in Tehran. Later, we'll discuss this further. In the Middle East, the only nation to possess nuclear weapons is Israel. See, these Gulf countries controls the major oil supply, but they are not nuclear weapon states. On the other hand, this Islamic revolution was driven by strong criticism of US. Thus, it was almost impossible for Iran to normalize the relationship with US. Similarly, US has not forgotten the actions of Iran. In the Middle East, Israel remains the only nuclear power state, and thus there is strong influence of the US. There is only one country that can counter and neutralize this power, and this is Iran. Thus, Iran started its nuclear program through intelligence and secrecy. See, it is most important to note here that in 1968, Non-Proliferation Treaty was signed between many countries, including 5 nuclear weapon states. The main objective of this treaty is to stop spreading of nuclear weapons. 3 main objectives are non-proliferation, which means no new countries are allowed to make nuclear weapons. See, second thing is disarmament, which means states with nuclear weapons will not allowed to produce more nuclear weapons. And third is peaceful usage. Therefore, it should be used for civilian purposes like energy and so on. See, India, Pakistan, and South Sudan have not signed this treaty yet, including Israel also. Now you are aware about this treaty. So let's back to our story. See, the main ingredient to make a nuclear weapon is uranium, and naturally occurring uranium is mostly uranium 238. To produce a highly energy emitting nuclear weapon, it must be converted to uranium 235 and its purity should be reached minimum of about 90%. This process of enrichment is done in the machine called centrifuges. See, to produce the nuclear weapon, it requires huge capital investment, not only for the production but for the deployment also. In 2002, nuclear facilities at Natanz and Arak were exposed by the opposition groups, which later led to investigations by the International Atomic Energy Agency. After that, in 2006, the United Nations Security Council passed the Resolution 1737 imposing strict sanctions on Iran for refusing to stop uranium enrichment. In 2015, JCPOA was signed with several countries including US, imposing strict international inspections and limiting uranium enrichment. But still, secretly this program was carried out to move forward. But at this time, the US and Israel carried out a cyber attack due to which the constant speed required for centrifuge to effectively enrich uranium was constantly fluctuating, delaying the nuclear program of Iran. See, after JCPOA, the United States and Iran felt it good because of complete investigations and Iran felt it secure. But after Trump comes into the power, in 2018, the United States withdrew from JCPOA. Heavy sanctions were reimposed. However, nuclear program in Iran was restarted with more advanced centrifuges and capabilities. In 2025, the United States and Israel carried out airstrikes near the nuclear sites, delaying the parts of nuclear program. This issue remains one of the most significant geopolitical conflicts in the Middle East. Despite being non-nuclear country, Iran has at times demonstrated its ability to defend itself from US pressure. So the question remains, why does Israel hate Iran? See, under the rule of Pahlavi kings, the relationship between Iran and Israel were good. But after Iranian revolution, Ruhollah Khomeini adopted anti-Israel policy. Ali Khamenei have always supported anti-Israel group and therefore relationship have remained hostile. He also referred Israel as an enemy of Islam. Under the Pahlavi rulers, Iran have supported Israel. But Ali Khamenei have always supported Palestine and group opposing the Iran. Due to this opposing stance, this relationship has always remained in a complicated situation. As I mentioned earlier that Israel is only nuclear power in the Middle East and no other nation is allowed or have developed that ambition except Iran. As long as Israel remains the only nuclear power in the Middle East, there is strong influence of United States. Iran has been trying to become a nuclear weapon state from many decades, but in order to retain their power in the Middle East, the United States and Israel have always attempted to delay Iran's nuclear program. This story begins on 28th December 2025. People across the country, outraged by the years of repression, demanded the fundamental change and a political system that respects human rights. Why did this protest erupt? The main reason behind this protest was a sharp fall in their currency value. Today, $1 equals to about 1.3 million Iranian riyals. People protested continuously against this theocratic system, demanding reforms. But instead addressing the problems of people, the government responded with force. On 8th January, internet access across the Iran was restricted. See, no official numbers were declared, but according to the reports, thousands of protesters were killed. Security forces used firearms and other forceful measures to control the protesters. However, instead of stopping, the protests become more intense, people become uncontrollable and security forces began firing. On 3rd January, the United States launched a military operation in Venezuela known as Operation Absolute Resolve. They targeted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The United States was prepared strategically. On one side, Khamenei announced that Iran would continue their nuclear ambitions. On the other side, protests were going on. Iran was weakened. Therefore, this created an opportunity for the United States and Israel to act by giving justification of removing dictatorship and restoring human rights. They planned an attack on Iran. The United States began deploying military equipments, naval assets, and air support in the Middle East. On 28th February, a war began when the United States and Israel launched a surprise attack on Iran, which the US named Operation Epic Fury. The CIA gathered information about a high-level meeting involving Khamenei with other senior officials to be held in an underground bunker. This was shared with Israel. The US and Israel then carried out epic airstrikes on this underground bunker in Tehran. Reportedly, Khamenei and many high-level officials were killed. And then the real question remains, who is now running the military operations in Iran? See, in Iran, there is multiple layered system in which the power is not distributed among a single individual, but to various political and military authorities. In Iran, IRGC plays an important or major role for decision making, and these decisions are distributed among various states of Iran. After that, the world's most crucial route, the Strait of Hormuz, was blocked by the Iran. And nearly 20% of the world's crude oil and 80% of Asia's crude oil and natural gas supply was disrupted. Iran laid mine on the Strait of Hormuz and warned that any vessel attempting to pass could be fired up. However, some of the Asian countries that maintains relatively neutral or friendly relationship with Iran were allowed at a limited extent, such as China and India. On the contrast, some of the countries including the United States and Israel and their allied nations faced a complete blockade. In countries like India, the LNG prices are already been risen by 60 rupees, and the hotels and some of the commercial sites are already facing shortages. As for crude oil, India does have strategic reserves and diversified import networks, but if this conflict intensified, then it may ultimately lead to a major energy crisis. But the real question is, who is paying the price of this war? It is not just armies or governments, but the real cost is being borne by the ordinary people across Asia, especially in the countries like India. But the rising price of crude oil is pushing up the cost of daily living. If the United States win, the strategic advantage may strengthen Israel, ensuring their influence in Middle East remain unchallenged. But the social and economic cost of this conflict will be faced by millions far from this battlefield. Gulf countries may prefer a decisive outcome in the favor of US, but this result can also trigger internal unrest within Iran. This could create further instability. However, there is a good news of ceasefire and further discussions will be held in Pakistan. At this point, India should think ahead in the direction of self-reliance and strategic independence in the line of vision to become a developed nation by 2047. This is not just a test for governments, but this is a test for all of us, as we all are unique. Thank you so much.